Black waitress serves millionaire's deaf grandmother. Her secret left everyone speechless. You can't be serious. Manager Victoria Pierce's sharp voice echoed through Silverstone, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. A waitress like you serving the Hartwell family's VIP table? Keisha Johnson, 24, held her tray steady as she faced Victoria's contemptuous gaze. At her feet, shards of the Chinese porcelain plate that had slipped from the manager's hands formed a mosaic of calculated humiliation. The noise had caused all the kitchen staff to stop and watch. "Clean up this mess and get back to the kitchen where you belong," Victoria continued, adjusting her Chanel blazer as she shot a meaningful glance at the other white waiters. "Table 12 is no place for people like you." Keisha never imagined that her 2 years of washing dishes and serving leftovers in that temple of New York's elite would culminate in this moment. But something in the way Victoria said "people like you" awakened an inner strength she had learned to control since childhood. "With all due respect, Victoria," Keisha replied, her calmness surprising even herself. "I was specifically assigned to this table by Mr. Hartwell. Perhaps you should talk to him if you have a problem with that decision." A tense silence filled the kitchen. Over the past few months, Keisha had noticed the signs. How Victoria deliberately assigned her the worst shifts, accidentally forgot to include her in larger tips, and always found fault with her work. But tonight would be different. James Hartwell III had personally called that morning, specifically requesting that the waitress who talks with her hands serve his table. Victoria nearly choked on her coffee when she received the message, clearly not understanding what it meant. The truth was that Keisha had a secret none of her coworkers could imagine. Something about her past that would change how everyone saw her. "Fine," Victoria spat. "But when you ruin the night for the most important family in this restaurant, don't say I didn't warn you. And if a single detail goes wrong," she left the threat hanging, smiling with the cruelty of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Keisha nodded silently, her eyes revealing a determination that made some of the more observant employees realize she carried something special, a serenity that only exists in those who have weathered worse storms and lived to tell the tale. As she made her way to the main hall where the Hartwell family waited, Keisha held herself with the quiet confidence of someone guarding a powerful secret. Victoria had no idea she was about to witness something that would change the restaurant forever. The Silverstone's main hall glowed beneath golden lights. Keisha walked between Italian marble tables, each step echoing in the reverent silence that always accompanied VIP guests. At table 12, by the window overlooking Central Park, sat the Hartwells. James Hartwell III, 35, was every inch the heir to a financial empire, tailored suit, expensive watch, and the relaxed confidence of someone who had never had to prove anything. Beside him, his impeccably dressed blonde wife typed frantically on her phone. But it was the third person that caught Keisha's attention. Mrs. Dorothy Hartwell, 78. Her intelligent eyes scanned the room. Her silver hair was swept into a neat bun, her navy dress exuding quiet class. Keisha instantly recognized the subtle tilt of her head, the way her eyes searched for visual cues. "Good evening, Mr. Hartwell. My name is Keisha, and I'll have the pleasure of serving you tonight." James smiled politely. His wife didn't even look up. "We want the wine list right away, and bring the appetizers quickly. We have an appointment at 10. Keisha nodded, but her attention remained on Mrs. Dorothy, who sat quietly, disconnected from the conversation. It was a painfully familiar sight. A deaf person treated like furniture while others made decisions for her. "And for you, ma'am?" Keisha asked, positioning herself directly in the elderly woman's line of sight. Mrs. Dorothy looked confusedly at James, who sighed. "She always has Chardonnay, no need to ask." That was the moment Keisha made her decision. She stepped in front of Mrs. Dorothy and, with smooth, precise movements, signed, "Good evening, ma'am. It's a pleasure to meet you. What would you like to drink tonight?" The effect was electric. Mrs. Dorothy's eyes widened. Her hands trembled slightly, then lifted as a radiant smile spread across her face. You talk with your hands," she signed back, tears welling. "It's been so long since anyone spoke to me." "Yes, ma'am," she replied in signs, "and I'd love to know what you'd prefer to drink. We have an excellent German Riesling that pairs beautifully with our salmon." The two women continued siming for several minutes. Mrs. Dorothy laughed, joked about the food, and for the first time in years, she was the center of attention. James watched in stunned silence, moved to see his grandmother so alive. "How did you learn that?" he finally asked. Keisha smiled. "My younger sister was born deaf, sir. Sign language was my second language before I even learned to read." She didn't mention the rest. The car accident that killed her parents, the 3 jobs she worked to pay for her sister Amara's special education, and how she'd given up college to keep Amara's therapy going. From the kitchen doorway, Victoria watched with barely concealed rage. For the next hour, Keisha served with grace and purpose, translating jokes, explaining dishes, and ensuring Mrs. Dorothy was included in every moment. "Grandma is happier than I've seen her in months," James said, as Keisha served the main course. "Where do you usually work? Because I want to make sure you always serve our table." "Actually, sir," Keisha admitted, "I normally work in the kitchen. This is my first night waiting tables." James's expression hardened. "You work in the kitchen? With that talent? Who made that decision?" Before Keisha could answer, Victoria appeared beside them like a storm. "Mr. Hartwell, I hope everything is perfect. Keisha is still in training, so if there are any problems—" "Actually," James interrupted, "I'm impressed. Keisha has provided the best service we've ever had. My grandmother is communicating directly with someone in months." Victoria's smile tightened. "How wonderful. I'm sure it was interesting." Keisha knew that tone. The night was far from over. When service ended, Victoria pulled Keisha aside. "My office. Midnight. Don't be late." At 12 a.m. sharp, under cold fluorescent lights, Victoria began her tirade. "I've been running this restaurant for 12 years. I know my place and everyone else's. People like you need to understand limits." "Limits, ma'am? Don't play dumb. Yesterday you were just another dishwasher. Today, by some stroke of luck, you impressed an important customer, but that doesn't change who you really are." Victoria circled her like a predator. "Starting tomorrow, you're back in the kitchen. Morning shifts, 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day, including weekends." Keisha understood immediately. It was a punishment designed to trap her. "I understand," she said softly. Her calm only infuriated Victoria more. "You're not going to beg?" "No, ma'am. I appreciate the opportunity to work here." "Good. And Keisha, if I find out you're talking directly to customers again, you'll be out on the street. There are 10 people waiting for your spot. Oh, and one more thing. Your special little sister, Amara, right? Specialized schools are expensive. It'd be a shame if something affected your ability to pay for them." The threat hung in the air. Keisha didn't flinch. "I understand perfectly, ma'am. Good evening." Once alone, she pulled out her phone and whispered into the recorder. "Report 1, Wednesday, 11:47 p.m. Victoria Pierce. Direct threats involving racial discrimination and blackmail related to my sister's disability." 8 years of surviving bureaucratic systems had taught Keisha one thing: document everything. At 5 a.m., Keisha arrived for her new shift and froze. Parked in front of the restaurant was a sleek black BMW. James Hartwell stepped out, still in yesterday's suit. "Keisha, how nice to see you. Can I talk to you for a minute?" "Of course, Mr. Hartwell, but I need to start work soon." "Work? You're not waiting tables?"
"No, sir. I've been reassigned to the kitchen." James frowned. "Why? Your performance yesterday was exceptional. My grandmother hasn't stopped talking about you." Kesha hesitated. "Certain people here have opinions about where I belong." "Are we talking about discrimination?" "We're talking about internal politics, sir, and I'd like to keep my job." James studied her quietly. "I see. Then let me make you an offer. Would you like to work directly for my family? We host regular events and we need someone who can communicate with my grandmother. The pay will be significantly higher." Kesh's heart pounded. That would be amazing, sir. I'll just need to give 2 weeks' notice. Of course. And if anyone tries to interfere, call me immediately. He handed her his card. As James left, Kesha looked down at the card in her hand. For the first time in months, she smiled. Victoria had made a fatal mistake. She assumed Kesha was just another desperate employee with no connections or resources. What the racist manager couldn't have imagined was that this simple dishwasher had spent 8 years learning that the system only changed when you forced it to change. And now, with a powerful ally and years of experience documenting injustices, Kesha finally had all the tools she needed to make Victoria pay for every humiliation. That afternoon, while washing dishes during her punitive shift, Kesha mentally organized her strategy. Every recorded conversation, every witness to racist comments, every policy applied in a discriminatory manner, everything would be used at the right moment. Victoria glanced occasionally through the kitchen window, clearly satisfied to see Kesha in her place. What she couldn't see was the determined gleam in the eyes of a woman who had learned to turn every injustice into fuel for something much greater. Because when you teach someone to fight unjust systems from the age of 16, when you force a person to become a strategist to protect those they love, you're not creating a victim. You're forging an adversary who knows exactly how to take down people who abuse power. And Victoria was about to discover that she had completely underestimated the wrong woman. Kesha's second week of notice was coming to an end when James Hartwell showed up at Silverstone for an unexpected meeting with the owner. Victoria nervously adjusted her blazer. Unscheduled visits from investors were never a good sign. "Mr. Hartwell," she greeted him with her most professional smile, "what a wonderful surprise. How can I help you today?" "Actually, Victoria, I came to talk to you specifically about Kesha Johnson," James said, his tone neutral, but there was something in his eyes that made her stomach clench. "Ah, yes, Kesha, a suitable employee, although she has had some discipline issues recently." "Discipline issues?" James raised an eyebrow. "Can you give me specific examples?" "Well, she broke protocols. She acted outside her position, you understand. People like her sometimes need to be reminded about hierarchies and boundaries." The phrase "people like her" hung in the air like an involuntary confession. "Interesting," James said evenly. "And what exactly was the protocol she broke?" Victoria realized she was treading on dangerous ground, but her arrogance wouldn't let her back down. "She communicated directly with your grandmother, without permission. Employees at her level should not interact with VIP clients without proper supervision." "I see," James replied, his voice calm but cold. "So you punished an employee for providing excellent customer service. I reassigned her to a position more suited to her qualifications," she said stiffly. It was at that moment that Kesha appeared, carrying a tray from the kitchen. Victoria immediately called her over. "Kesha, come here, please." Kesha approached calmly, but James noticed something different in her eyes, a serene confidence that hadn't been there 2 weeks ago. "Mr. Hartwell would like to talk to you about your transition to the new position," Victoria said, clearly expecting Kesha to confirm her version of events. "Of course," Kesha replied, taking her phone out of her pocket. "Actually, Mr. Hartwell, I have carefully documented our entire conversation about this transition. It might be useful in clearing up some misunderstandings." Victoria's face instantly paled. "Documented? What do you mean by that?" Kesha tapped the screen. Victoria's voice echoed through the speaker. "People like you need to understand that there are limits. Your special little sister, Amara, isn't she? It would be a shame if something affected your ability to pay for them." The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria stared at the phone as if it were a poisonous snake. "There's more," Kesha continued calmly. 3 weeks of similar comments, discriminatory schedules applied only to Black employees, and multiple witnesses to your management practices." James turned to Victoria. "Do you have anything to say about these accusations?" She's taking everything out of context. She's a disgruntled employee trying to frame me." "Context?" Kesha raised an eyebrow. "Let's hear the full context." She played another recording. "I've been running this restaurant for 12 years. I know my place, and more importantly, I know everyone else's place here. People like you need to understand that there are limits." James' expression hardened, the controlled fury of someone accustomed to ending careers with a single decision. "Victoria," he said evenly, "as the principal investor in this establishment, I am officially terminating our partnership. You have until the end of the day to clear out your office." "You can't do that," Victoria exploded, her mask of professionalism slipping. "Because of this... Go on. Finish that sentence, in front of witnesses." Victoria froze. It was too late. Every employee watching now knew the truth. Kesha calmly put away her phone. "Mr. Hartwell, I believe our conversation about the new position can continue in a more professional setting." "Certainly," James said, still watching Victoria crumble. "My attorney will handle the legal aspects of this situation. I suggest you consult yours." As they walked out, leaving Victoria trembling in her own restaurant, James asked, "How long have you been planning this?" 8 years, Kesha replied simply. "Ever since I learned that documenting injustices is the only way to make sure they have consequences." Victoria watched them through the window. For the first time in her career, she realized she had completely underestimated someone. Not just an employee, but a strategist who turned every humiliation into evidence and every abuse into ammunition. She had wasted years trying to break someone who was unbreakable. Now, surrounded by the quiet satisfaction of employees she'd mistreated, she understood that her career had been methodically destroyed by the very person she despised the most. Moments later, her phone rang. It was the restaurant owner who had just received a very interesting call from James Hartwell about documented discriminatory practices and possible lawsuits. 6 months later, the Hartwell Hotel's Grand Hall glowed under golden lights as it hosted the first annual Inclusion Gala. Kesha Johnson, now Director of Community Relations for the Hartwell family, adjusted the microphone on stage, ready to present the sign language training program she had created. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, signing as she spoke, "today we celebrate not only inclusion, but the proof that when we give people real opportunities, they always exceed our expectations." In the front row, Dorothy Hartwell applauded warmly. Beside her, James smiled proudly, knowing this event was Kesha's vision. The program had already trained over 200 employees across the hotel chain, transforming the experience for deaf guests nationwide. "My sister Amara," Kesha continued, "always told me that our difference is not our limitation, it's our superpower." And she was right. Amara, now a university student on a scholarship James had created for her, waved from the audience with tears in her eyes. Meanwhile, just 15 blocks away, Victoria Pierce watched the live stream on her cracked phone from her small apartment. After losing her job, recordings of her racist remarks had gone viral. No restaurant in Manhattan would hire her. Her name had become synonymous with workplace discrimination. At the gala, a former Silverstone employee took the stage. "Kesha taught me that dignity isn't something people can give us or take away. It's something we carry within ourselves, no matter how we're treated." The audience rose to its feet in a 2-minute standing ovation. Victoria closed her phone in frustration, but deep down, she knew the truth. Kesha hadn't just survived, she had become the storm. While Victoria faded into irrelevance, Kesha was building a legacy. True revenge, Kesha concluded in her speech, is not destroying those who hurt us. It's building something so powerful and beautiful that it makes them irrelevant. The final applause thundered through the hall and across every screen where thousands watched live. 2 years later, when Victoria finally found work as a hostess at a small cafe in Queens, she occasionally saw news stories about Kesha winning awards for corporate inclusion. The program had expanded to 50 companies. Universities invited her to speak on leadership and social justice. The lesson was unmistakable. When you try to destroy someone out of prejudice,